The stage was bright. Cameras rolled. A glossy LED screen behind the podium shimmered with the bold title, West African Unity, A New Dawn. Millions were watching, live. Captain Ibrahim Traoré stood still.com. Yet something in high size, deep stormy, hinted this wasn't going to be a regular summit speech. President Bola Tinubu sat across from him, his expression unreadable. The moderator's voice broke the silence. Captain Traoré, you have the floor. Trop approached the mic slowly. Step carried the weight of 1,000 voices. The room, TENSED. Viewers leaned forward in living rooms, cafes, hospitals, even border guards paused their patrols to listen. But True didn't start with greetings. He looked straight at Tinubu, and then he said something no one expected. I speak today, not as a leader, not as a soldier, but as a brother who couldn't sleep after seeing what I saw last. The room froze. A video. A little girl in Nigeria crying beside her mother's lifeless body, shot in Hersley, gasps. How did we get here? Tears welled in his eyes, but he wasn't done. She was only 7. Traoré's voice cracked. A long pause followed. His eyes lowered as he reached into his pocket, pulling out a folded photo. I carry her image with me today, not to provoke, but to remind us. He unfolded the paper. This is Fatima. Her story didn't make the headlines, but her scream, it reached me through a video that was never meant to be seen. Behind him, the studio screen dimmed. It cut to black and white footage. A dirt path, a burning hut, a small hand clutching Amethyst's dress. The moderators had not approved this clip, but Traoré had made sure it played. People in the studio shifted uncomfortably. Tinubu stiffened. She begged a soldier to help her mother. He told her to run. He paused again. She never came back. Gasps rippled through the audience. One journalist quietly wiped her eyes. Traoré turned toward Tinubu, but his voice softened. I am neither to blame, Mr. President. I am here to beg with you, as a father, as a brother, as a fellow African. This cannot continue. The room was desolate. The world was holding its breath. A bead of sweat rolled down Tinubu's temple. Cameras zoomed in. Captain Traoré's gaze didn't waver. His voice was calm, but heavy like thunder about to strike. Tell me, Bola, do you sleep at night? The question hit like a slap. People in the studio stared. The moderator looked alarmed, but said nothing. When reports say 89 villagers died in Sokoto last week, when a market in Zamfara is bombed, when children mistake drones for stars, do you sleep? Tinubu opened his mouth to speak, but Traoré raised a hand. Gently. This isn't political. This is personal. He stepped closer to the edge of the stage. They are not just numbers, Mr. President. They are daughters, sons, farmers, mothers. They are Africa's heartbeat, and we are letting them die. The LED screen now showed photos, real, unfiltered, raw, children's faces, empty shoes, burned school books. Viewers watching at home began to cry. In Burkina Faso, a market woman dropped her produce and wept. I have no right to speak for Nigeria, but I have a duty to speak for humanity. Because if I stay silent, then I'm part of the killing, too. The audience didn't clap. They couldn't. They were broken. And this was only the beginning. Captain Ibrahim Traoré stood completely still, the photo of little Fatima still in his hand. She ran barefoot, he said, voice breaking, over rocks, broken glass, blood. The studio was silent. Even the air conditioning seemed to stop. I don't need intelligence reports, Takno. What's happening in Nigeria? He continued. I've seen the footage. I've seen that children hiding in schools with no food. I've seen mothers begging soldiers for mercy. The camera zoomed in on President Tinubu. His eyes didn't blink. His hands were clasped so tight his knuckles had turned white. Fatima had no shoes, Traoré repeated softly. She was running to nowhere, hoping someone, anyone, would save her. The screen behind him flickered. Images appeared. A burnt classroom, scattered books, a child's doll covered in ash. This is not politics. This is a eunuch gasps. One panelist turned away trying not to cry. Mr. President, Traoré said, I'm not asking for a statement. I'm asking for a soul. You could hear people sobbing quietly in the audience. And across Africa, millions began to feel something stir in their hearts. Guilt, grief, and teaching question. How did we let Ibrahim Traoré paused, closing his eyes briefly. When he opened them, there was a quiet fire behind them. I know what war feels like, he said. I've buried odious. I've written letters to their mothers. His voice trembled, not with fear, but with pain. But this war, Theon killing babies in Zamfara, students in Kaduna, this is not war. This is collapse. He turned toward Tinubu again, but gentler. This time, when you carry the name of a nation on your back, it is not your spine that breaks first. It is your heart. The room stayed frozen. Journalists didn't type, they just watched. I did not come here to shame you, Traoré said. I came because silence is a slow death. In Africa, our Africa, is choking on it. He looked down at his hands. A leader's chest must beat loudest in war. It must hold the fear of children, the screams of widows, the prayers of grandmothers. He looked back up. Mr. President, if your heart still beats Fortum, let the world hear it. Tinubu's lips parted, but he couldn't speak. A single tear rolled down his cheek. The summit was only halfway through, but the moment had already escaped the room. Clips of Trump's words began spreading. Gakra's Twitter, Instagram, and WhatsApp like wildfire. He spoke for us all. Even a Birkin Bay leader has more heart than ours. Nigeria crying in Traoré is the only one listening. Young Nigerians gathered in cafes and community halls, watching replays on cracked TVs and phones held up by bricks. Mothers wept. Some whispered prayers. Others just stared. In logos. A journalist who had lost her nephew in a recent attack wrote on X. Captain Trump just said everything we've been too broken to say. Thank you. Meanwhile, in the studio, True returned the mic. This is not about Burkina Faso. This is about us as Africans, as neighbors, as brothers. He raised a finger and pointed directly at the camera. To the children watching this, you deserve peace. To the fathers carrying guilt, you are. To the leaders hiding behind salons, your people are dying louder than your words. A stunned cameraman forgot to cut to commercial. The world was crying, and yet something bigger was just beginning. As the summit continued, Trey turned to a worn envelope in his jacket pocket. He held it up. This was sent to me. 3. Tasago, he said quietly, by a mother from Renos. He slowly unfolded the letter. Her name is Miriam. Her son, Azim, was 14. He loved football. He wanted to be a doctor. Troy's lips tightened. Last week, Azim was shot on his way back from Quranic school, caught in crossfire between gangs and security forces. He began reading aloud, each word trembling. Captain Traoré, I write to you because I know you'll listen. I don't want revenge. I just want someone to care. Azim's blood is still on my doorstep. I wash it every morning, but it comes back with the rain. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Tinubu's eyes were downcast. That rain, Traoré said, is not from Desky. It's from all the tears Nigeria has cried, and yet no one hears. The camera panned across faces, frozen in grief. We cannot lead if we do not first kneel at feet of the people we've failed. Theward watched in silence. Tinubu finally raised his eyes. There was shame in them. Trump saw it, but he didn't strike. He simply walked closer. Mr. President, he said, I know the pressure, I know the weight, but when power looks away, people disappear. He paused and Nigeria is disappearing. Gasps. No one had ever said that on a global stage. Every week I hear of kidnappings in Kaduna, orphans in Katsina, explosions in Buro. But the world scrolls past. I tend, your government writes, statements instead of solutions. That Tinubu opened his mouth, trying to speak, but nothing came. I do not say this to humiliate you, Traoré added gently. I say this because I still believe you can turn back. A still image of Nigerian children leaping on the floor in an overcrowded DP camp filled the giant screen. Behind them, look at him, just look. This is not fake news. This is not propaganda. This is real. A tear slid down Tuba's. What kind of legacy do we leave if Kudran must learn the national anthem under gunfire? The question echoed in the room. Nobody had an answer. Trump took a deep breath and walked toward the front of the stage. 2 nights ago, he began. I saw a video of a boy in my duggery. The screen lit up. Asking a child barefoot, tapping gently on a broken plastic drum. Smoke rose behind him from a recent blast. His name is Ibrahim Traoré, said. Semius mine. But his drum, it wasn't for music. He was using it to calm the younger, kids hiding in rubble. Silence. That broken drum made more peace than our governments have in years. The audience stirred. Tinubu looked like head stopped breathing. That boy, with nothing, gave comfort to others. So I asked again, what are we doing with all this power, this status, this responsibility? The camera zoomed in on Trey. If we cannot protect children like Ibrahim, we don't deserve the titles we wear. He looked into the lens, and I include myself. The humility in his words crushed every remaining wall in the room. It is time for action, not slogans, not speeches. Action. A single clap was heard, then another, and then the whole studio rose. Just as the applause began to build, the TV broadcast screen suddenly cut to black. Millions watching across Africa, their TVs had malfunctioned. In reality, someone inside the control room had panicked. The speech was too raw, too real, too loud. Social media erupted. Why did they cut it? Who's afraid of the truth? We need the hardest in the studio. Trey stood, confused as technicians rushed around. One of the producers whispered in his ear. We've been ordered to end the stream. Too emotional, too political. Trey didn't flinch. Instead, he walked right to the nearest cameraman, still filming for the in-house archive. If world can't hear me live, he said, they will hear me offline. The cameraman nodded quietly. The camera rolled again, and Trey did something next. He stepped off the stage and walked straight to Bola Tinubu's seat. Mr. President, may I speak to you, Leader. The room held its breath. Tanu slowly stood up. For the first time in hours, he spoke. I'm listening. No microphone, no podium, no crowd noise. Just 2 African leaders standing face. Traoré didn't raise his voice. He didn't accuse. He placed a hand gently on Tinubu's shoulder. I know ya carry pain, he said softly. I've seen it in your eyes today. Tinubu blinked. You tour. People don't need leaders who carry pain. They need leaders who act through it. The room stayed quiet. Not a single phone rang. Even the journalists stopped taking notes. Tinubu's voice was dry. You don't understand how hard it is. Trey nodded. You're right. I don't understand your pain. He pointed to the screen behind them, which now showed a map of Nigeria dotted in red. Each dot a mass killing in the last 3 months. But I understand the people's pain. That's who I speak for. Tinubu's hand trembled slightly. Do you really think it's not too late? Trey's response was instant. It's only too late when we choose comfort over courage. The camera quietly zoomed in as Tinubu's face shifted. A tear escaped, and behind him, thunderous applause resumed. Traoré returned to his seat, not saying a word. Tinubu remained standing. He looked out over the crowd. His lips moved slightly, then stopped. Finally, he asked for a piece of paper. From his breast pocket, he pulled out a black pen. If I may, he said, I want to write something. The moderators, unsure of what he meant, nodded. In silence, Tinubu scribbled something on the paper, folded it, and walked to the same podium where Traoré had stood. This isn't a speech, he said. This is a promise. He read what he had written. Tonight I will travel to Kaduna. I will meet the Mathas. I will walk through the camps. I will not speak as a president. I will listen as a father. Tears flowed freely from the audience now. And I will not return to Aso Rock until I have answers. Real ones. He looked at Trey. Thank you for breaking me open. The studio lit a pin, standing ovation, and online across Nigeria and Burkina Faso, a single sentence began trending. Africa, Ishling. The footage was shaky. Film Medby, a young volunteer with a cheap Android phone. But it shook the entire continent. President Tinubu had arrived in Kaduna. No sirens, no convoy. Just a dark SUV. one aide, and a notebook in his hand. Walked into the IDP camp slowly. Women stared in disbelief. One boy whispered, "Is that really him?" Tinubu didn't speak. He sat on a wooden bench, surrounded by tents, made of rice sacks and sticks. The camp director handed him a list. "These are the names of those killed last month," she said. 47. "We haven't buried all of them." He looked at the paper. Then he looked opened, said, "Can I meet their mothers?" Word spread like fire. In less than 20 minutes, 6 grieving mothers stood before him. One held a photo of Herdo, her only child. Another clutched a torn school uniform. They didn't yell, they just cried. And Tinubu, once the most powerful man in Nigeria, cried, too, that night, as he slept on a thin mat among them. Who wrote Captain Trad? Didn't embarrass me. He reminded me I still have a soul. Back in Burkina Faso, Traoré watched its Kaduna footage in his presidential vice. He said nothing for a long time. Then, he whispered. He went. His advisor nodded. "Yes, sir," and he listened. But something else was happening too. Across Africa, children began sending video messages to their presidents inspired by Traoré's words. The most viral came from a 9-year-old girl in Kano named Seda. She stood barefoot on cracked concrete holding a sign that read, "Stop thief killing. Let us learn." Her voice was small but clear. "If you see us dying, and you, stay quiet. Maybe you don't love us." She didn't scream. She didn't cry. But her innocence pierced more hearts than any adult speech ever could. By nightfall, her video had over 9 million views. Traoré reposted it with a caption, "You are the voice of a new Africa. Andy, hear you." That night, several African presidents released joint statements promising to do more. But Traoré didn't share yet. He turned to his team. "Words are good," he said, "but I'm preparing to return to Nigeria myself." The room went still to walk where Fatamadi Trop arrived in Zamfara at dawn. No press, no stage, just silence. A local guide led him to a patch of land near a collapsed hut. "This is where Sheffel," the man said. Fatima Tro stood still. He didn't speak for over 5 minutes. Birds chirped faintly. In the background, a small goat wandered nearby. Then True did something next. He knelt about Fatima. He whispered, "The world didn't ignore you, but I will not let you be forgotten." He reached into his pocket and placed something in the dirt. A single white bed from his own mother's necklace, one she had given him before she died when Anne became a soldier. "This is for you," he said. "So 30 very times someone forgets your name, God will remember your face." The guide began to cry. And just as Traoré stood, a crowd began to form. Quiet villagers, mothers, farmers, children standing at a respectful distance. One woman placed her baby on the ground and whispered, "You are the only one who came." Thuan picked up, and for the first time in that broken village, hope returned. As Captain Traoré Tornado leave the quiet field in Zamfara where Fatima had died, a small girl stepped out from the crowd. She couldn't have been more than 6. She held a broken pencil in her hand and said softly, "Can I still go to school, sir?" Traoré knelt down. "Yes," he said gently, "you can and you must." The little girl nodded. Then without warning she began to sing. An old house of lullaby her mother used to sing before attacks. One voice became 2. 2 became 20. Soon the entire village was singing, their voices rising above theskers and smoke. No one told them to. It came from the pain, from the healing. And in the middle of it, Traoré stood crying. Not as a president, but as a father who had found his lost child. A drone camera captured the scene by accident, and when it reached social media, it spread like wildfire. "This is the Africa we fight for." One comment read, "This is the Africa we must never lose again." The world was not just watching. The world was finally feeling. 2 weeks later, President Tanu returned, the same broadcast studio where it all began. This time, he wasn't shaken. He walked in carrying a wooden box, hand-carved by displaced artisans in Bara. As Traoré entered, the 2 men embraced silently. No words, just truth. Then Tinubu opened the box. Inside was a folded Nigerian flag with Fatima's name stitched in gold at the edge. She didn't die in vain, Tinubu said softly. Her name will now fly with our nation's flag in every IDP camp. Traoré's eyes glistened. The two leaders stepped forward together and made a joint declaration. $100 million in emergency funds for victims. An African child safety pact to be signed by 14 countries, and a new education fund named after Fatima across Nigeria, Burkina Faso, Ghana, Senegal, and Ivan in the diaspora. Churches, mosques, and markets cheered. For the first time in a long time, people believed. Leadership had felt like love, and Africa was changing, not because of guns or threats, but because one man spoke truth, and another man listened. In a grand hall in Abuja, filled with mothers, orphans, students, farmers, and soldiers, Captain Trout stood at the microphone. He looked out at the audience. Then he looked into the camera straight into the heart of Africa. The world watched us bleed, but now let the world watch us rise. A massive screen behind him lit up. It showed Fatima's face, Saday's video, Tinubu, in Kaduna, the girls singing in Zamfara. The crowd stood. People were crying. Entire communities held hands in front of their TVs. We are not powerless, Traoré said. We are not voiceless. We are the storm that will protect every child with our peace, not our weapons. He raised his hand, and for the first time, Africa saw its leaders, not as kings, but as servants of the people. The broadcast ended, but the movement had just begun. If you felt this story in your soul, don't scroll. Leave a comment for Fatima. Say her name. Tell the world what you wish every leader would hear. Like this video if you believe Africa deserves peace. Subscribe if you believe in leaders like Captain Ibrahim Traoré. Share this with someone who still believes in humanity. Because this isn't just a story. This is a cry, a call, a promise.